that recording now. Right. Now in Maya, I don't know if you remember the Monday lot. I definitely went through this with the Monday lot. I might have gone through it with... No, I didn't do Friday, did I, in the first semester? That's Paul. I've been doing it for Friday now so long that I assumed I did. But the Monday lot might remember that I was griping about how a normal sphere, a get primitive sphere in Maya, isn't really my favourite thing to work with. Because at the poles, a whole bunch of triangles are going to meet up. Now, this causes issues with smoothing. So you get that weird little pinched look. It also causes issues with UV mapping. It's not the bestest to UV map on that kind of base geometry because, again, you'll get distortion. What I prefer to do, ideally, if I need a sphere, is to use a quadded sphere, right? So you have to literally make your own sphere. And the way I do that is I make a cube, sorry. And what I'm going to do is I smooth it, and I smooth it by 2. You could do exactly the same by just hitting 3 and then going convert smooth mesh preview to polygons. Does the same thing. But so now that's actually, when you look at it, if I just hide this circle here, you've kind of got a sphere like that. But you'll notice it's a little bit wonky. It's like a slightly cubed sphere. Now that's not going to, it's not the end of the day, that. But at the same time, if you want to make it a little bit more perfectly spherical, and you will never get it perfectly spherical, I should say. So maybe the word perfect's wrong here. What you can do is you can select your kind of quadded sphere and then select a real sphere that's bigger and over the top of it and go deform, shrink wrap. Now, nothing happens initially because you just have to set a few settings into the shrink wrap bit just here. And really you only need to set one thing, and that's Vertex Normals. What that does is it kind of inflates that quadded sphere until it hits the perfect primitive sphere. It kind of shrink wraps it to it on the inside edge of it. That would just mean that you get a slightly more accurate sphere than you did if you just hit smooth and then give it a subdivision of 2. Now, the thing is, though, you don't want to do that every single time you want to create this kind of special sphere. So what if you could just press a button, one button, and you could get that? Well, you kind of can, but you have to go through maybe a little bit of a process here, but it's not too bad. First things first, I'm going to delete the history on this. It might be inside out, yeah, so it's inside out, so I'm also going to reverse it. I'm going to delete the history again. Or you can just hit G. If you hit G, it'll repeat the last menu command you did. So here's my base sphere. What I'm going to do is I'm going to export it as an FBX, sorry. So with it selected, export selection, and I'm going to put this, you want to put this somewhere where you're unlikely to lose it or delete it by accident. And this also will change. If you're using a different machine, you'll have to do this each time you use a new machine. So if you sit at the same machine each week, then you're sorted. And if you do it at home, you're sorted. But if you move to a different machine, you will have to do this again. So I'm going to save this in assets. I'm going to call it quad sphere, like this. And then I'm going to delete it. No, actually, I'm not going to delete it just in case it doesn't work. I'm going to put temp after it like this, but I'm going to hide it. Now, the next thing we need to do is import it. Import what we just exported, which might seem a bit pointless, but you'll see why in a moment. So import, quad sphere, import. Got our quad sphere back. Now, do you remember, hopefully you remember, how you can create buttons on the shelf? Buttons that you use a lot, that maybe aren't on the shelf, but you use a lot. You can create them by holding Control-Shift when you select something up here, and then it will magically appear in here. When you can do a similar thing. There's this button down here, hiding all the way down here, and that's the script editor. Now, every single thing you do in Maya, as well as getting, if it's a modeling operation, as well as getting remembered in the modeling sort of stack in the channel editor, everything you do gets recorded into this script editor window. This means that you can find, this is what this bit just here does. You see this line here? When I imported that quad sphere, what was actually happening behind the scenes was that Maya was executing this little bit of code. Now, VFXers in second and third year will start doing lots more of this stuff, but they'll be doing it in Python, which is like a programming language or a scripting language. Now, but we can still use this even if we don't know how to do any kind of coding at all, because what Maya will let you do is it will let you highlight a command that you did, and then it will let you middle mouse button, drag it up onto a shelf. And when you do that, it says, hey, you want to save this script to shelf as a type, and if we go mel, it creates a new little button, just like that. Now, at the moment, that button looks a bit boring. One thing we can quickly do, I think that's quite nice, is we can make our own button. And I'm going to turn off the grid, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to print screen, go into Photoshop, create a new document and paste that. Now I'm just going to crop out, so I'm just looking at my little quad sphere. We got that. And you can do anything in here. You can make any kind of icon you like. You can use a PNG and you can make the background transparent, but I can't be bothered to do that at the moment. So I'm just going to change the image size down to something a lot smaller because we're just making an icon here. So I'm going to make this, I don't know, just 100 pixels across, and I want to make it square. So I'm going to do that. Okay, it's a bit oval just there, but you get the idea. So that makes a small little picture of a quad sphere, and I'm going to save this out. And where I'm going to save it to is moderately important. I'm going to put it in Documents, Maya, 2018, Prefs, Icons. And I'm going to save this as a little PNG. I'm going to call it Quad Sphere. Like that. And I'm just going to go no compression, nothing like this. So back into Maya. I've got this little icon here now. Now, if I right-click it and go Edit, I can see the command that it's going to execute, but I can also see here shelves. There's a lot of confusing stuff here. All we want to do here is we want to go to the little file browser, click that. Now, it automatically puts us into the icons, and that's why I saved it there. Click on that, go Open. And now, look, our button here has changed to the actual quad sphere. The tooltip, we can get rid of the command because we don't have to wait. That is not, even though that looks like that technical kind of code for executing that command, that's not actually what's happening. That's actually what this is going to be here is like the description of the tool. So I can put anything I like here. I'm going to put create quad sphere, and I'm just going to go save all shelves. So now we've got this little icon here, and when I hover over it, it even says create quad sphere. So let's delete the old quad sphere and do this and go, right, I need another quad sphere. So I just click on this button and I get myself my own little new primitive quad sphere, which is going to be better to work with than the default Maya primitive. Now, some of you might go, oh, I can do a lot of stuff here. So any command that I do, I can highlight it and make it all into a single button. What if I chained a whole bunch of commands together? Well, you could experiment with that. Now, what I also like to do, apart from quad sphere, I like to do a similar thing. I'm just going to repeat the whole process again, just so to help it sink in. I use, as well as using spheres and cubes and planes, obviously, I tend to use a lot of cylinders, but I don't tend to, like the cylinder as it comes in. Now you can remember, Maya will change. Will remember. So if I go to create polygon and cylinder here, I can, hang on, change this. I always like to start off with an 8-sided cylinder. And you've got a choice whether you want to have cap subdivisions as 1 or whatever number you like. But most of the time I like to start off with, again, a quadded cylinder. So for a quadded cylinder I might create an 8-sided one, and the next time I create a cylinder it will automatically create an 8-sided one, but I've still got to go in here and quad it by getting rid of these edges just here. So again, what I could do is I could export this and call this one quad cylinder. Like that. I'm going to, again, double click it just to rename it and hide it. And file, import, quad cylinder. Open that up. Go back to my script editor window, which is that little button just here. And this time find this one just here. So there he is, quad cylinder. Drag and drop it. Middle mouse button, by the way, to do this. Not left mouse button or right mouse button. Middle mouse button. Save that just there. Again, it's its own little button. So again, I'm gonna hide that one. I'm gonna hide the grid. I'm gonna print screen. And create. Hold on a sec. I've just got to open the door. Someone has forgot their pass. Okay, so create, paste it, and again I'm just going to crop it out like that. Change the image size down to just 100 by 100. And save that one out as well. Again as PNG. The only reason I'm doing it as a PNG is that sometimes when you're saving such a small little image, JPEG artifacts can kind of show up a little bit more. And PNG has the option of having, well, it's a lossless compression format, so you can't see any degradation of quality when you save it. So save, okay, back into Maya, and again, edit that button by choosing the icon like this, and I'm going to rename this quad cylinder. Save all shells. So now I've got two buttons here to very quickly create objects that I'm using a lot. So I've got a sphere, and I can do the same here. I like to do the similar thing with a sphere. So I like to make a quadded sphere, but I also like to make a sphere, sorry, not a sphere, a cylinder. I also like to make a cylinder that's open-ended. Because unfortunately, whereas a lot of 3D programs give you the option of creating cylinders that are open, Maya doesn't. So if you want to create your own open cylinder, you kind of have to make it yourself. And again, this will save you, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds. But obviously, you're making your objects in your 3D scenes out of probably a lot of cylinders, spheres, planes, and boxes. And so anything that can speed it up, the better. Now, everything by default, you create these new buttons and they sit at the end of the current shelf you've got active. If you want to have it make a bit more sense, you can rearrange these. So you can middle mouse button on the icon and drag it over and place it into a more sensible place next to the rest of your primitives, just here. There you go. So I think that saves a lot of time. Now, there is one minor downside here. Because it's loading in a named object from disk, if you don't rename these objects and you execute the button again, it won't actually bring in a new one. So you will have to, at one point, just very quickly go, I don't know, ball or something like that. Just rename it. As long as you rename it, then you're fine. And you should just click it again and get a new one like that. If you don't rename it, so this is cube 1. See, it doesn't actually bring in a new one because it looks into your scene and goes, hey, you've already got a cube 1 and I'm trying to bring in a cube 1. So you just have to do a quick rename, but that's easy enough. Just double click and blah, 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 whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I think that saves a huge amount of time. If you're being like strict on yourself and you're being careful and you're trying to only model things with 4-sided faces, that quadded sphere is a much better base to start off with, and it's just a time saver to have a cylinder that has a quadded end or cap or a cylinder that's open as well, because lots and lots of stuff we do don't actually require any ends on the cylinders like that. Okay, that's what I really wanted to show you. And maybe also, yeah, to hopefully get the brains going in terms of thinking what else you could turn into a script button. Because anything, as I said, anything you do in Maya gets recorded into this script editor. VFX people will next year have to learn how to do scripting. Concept artists need never learn that, unless they want to get the edge over their competitors. Okay then. All right then. I'll save that and I'll upload that for you to look at later.